Shut up and sit down.
Hey, and welcome back to another team preview. In this team preview, we'll be going over the team known as Cloud9. However, before I give my thoughts and opinions on the team Cloud9, let's go over a brief history of Cloud9. Cloud9 got into Valorant basically when it was released, if not before then. They're one of the oldest teams to be in Valorant. However, when they were first created, they were a top contender, but never undoubtedly the best team. This is when Mitch was added to the team back when they first began. He was part of the first initial roster that was fielded, and he survived his way through them being really good contenders, as well as the rebuilding phase that happened shortly after they did not qualify for First Strike, which was the big tournament of December 2020. It was the biggest tournament at that time. Leaf was one of the first building blocks that were put into place while Cloud9 was rebuilding. He was added the 21st of January, and this basically kicked off the rebuilding period for Cloud9 at that time. Shortly after, on the 26th of January, Zeta was added, and he was added due to the fact that Riot basically instituted a rule saying teams were only allowed to field one roster in VCT. This meant that teams like V1 and Cloud9 that had two rosters, one being in NA and Korea, they had to choose one, so both these teams chose to stick with their NA teams, and their Korea teams dissolved. Zeta was on Cloud9 Korea, and he trialed with the NA team after their rebuilding, and he flew over to the NA after he was added to the NA roster. Autumn, the current coach of Cloud9, also was on Cloud9 Korea, being the coach, and he also was added on the 26th of January and is now the head coach of Cloud9 Blue. Later, Zeppa was added on the 19th of April. He was added alongside Floppy. Both of them came from CS, but were not on the same team. Floppy was on the CS team for Cloud9, but Zeppa came from Team Chaos, the same team Vanity and Leaf were on, I should say. When he was initially added, he was put on the bench, basically giving him time to learn the game at a more masterful level, because he was transitioning from CS and was given a very short amount of time, and he eventually replaced Poise a couple months later on the active roster. The most recent addition being Vanity. He is now the IGL for Cloud9. He basically replaced Floppy, who decided to quit playing, mostly because he didn't really like Valorant too much, so he went back to CS. Vanity was the IGL for V1 back when V1 went to Masters 2 Reykjavik, and he basically told them when that V1 team was first being built that if his former teammates from Chaos were to move over to Valorant, he would want to go play with them. And that is exactly what happened with Cloud9, and he is now on Cloud9. This has been a brief description of how Cloud9 has gone over. They were very good back when Valorant was first introduced, and then as teams got better, they kind of stagnated. Unfortunately, spent the better part of 2021 rebuilding, and now they are very competitive here at the latter part of 2021, making it to Champions, the most prestigious tournament so far in Valorant. So that is very good for their part, and they are getting good when it matters. Given an overall look at the tournament, they got past version 1 pretty easily in the first match, ran into some trouble with Rise. Rise gave them trouble on Breeze and Haven, and that was a best of 3, so they went down to lower bracket. Got past Gen G, wasn't super close when they played Gen G, but Gen G did take a map off them. Once I got to the X set match, a lot of their individual stuff got cleaned up. There's a lot less dry peeking. There's a lot less, it's just better spacing overall, better scaling. They just look better as a team going to the X set match and beyond. 100 Thieves, that's a pretty formidable team, but really, they kind of just beat 100 Thieves. The last map, 100 Thieves just went out pretty simply. There was really no contest. They just won outright. And then they played Rise again, who they got beat into lower bracket, and they pretty much dominated. The closest map was Bind, and that was the last map of the best of 5 that they played, and they just 3-0'd them. And Bind was 11-13. Overall, it was a very good run for Cloud9 Blue. And yeah, I'll basically describe why that is. Next, I'll be going over the team roles. Leaf is their main duelist. He's going to play Jet on most of the maps. However, he does play Raze on Ascent and Sky on Bind and Split. He's one of the best duelists in the world. That's not really an argument point. Some may consider him one of the best, like top 5, but he is without a doubt very high on that list of best duelists in the world. He is very aggressive on the defensive side of most maps. Sometimes he's being supported with utility, but sometimes he's just dry peeking, but it really doesn't matter. He's usually farming either way. Definitely one of the best players in the world. Zeppa is in the role of Flex Duelist. He is playing KO on Ascent and Breeze currently. However, at the start of this tournament, he was playing KO on almost all the maps, pretty much. He did play Sage on Ascent one time, and he plays Raze on Bind, Split, and Haven, where they do no longer play KO. And in some of the maps, they never did. But he also plays Rain on Icebox. They didn't really play Icebox too much. They didn't play Split too much. Overall thoughts on Zeppa: he's a very solid player. He tends to frag better on Raze, which makes sense because he's a very frag heavy agent. His util is very good for the most part, and he's overall just a very consistently good player. However, he's not going to carry around, but you have Leaf for that, so that's not too much of a knock on his part being a player on this team. He's just not asked to carry as much as, say, Leaf. Zeta is probably one of the better support players in the world. He plays Sova on most maps, and he plays Breach on Split. His shock darts when he plays Sova constantly get value. Very recently, a lot of the NA teams have started to do like suck with the Astra combos with other utility, so they get a lot of value with the suck shock dart lineups. There's a lot of double kills or just straight up kills with darts, or shock darts I should say. And they also have a lot of trap plays with the recon dart as well, on especially Bind. Vanity is the IGL for the team. He's one of the better IGLs in the world. He plays Viper on Breeze and Icebox, Astra on basically the rest of the maps. He is great at mid-round calling. He's probably one of the better mid-round callers in the world. Sometimes he tends to overcall, but that is very few and far between times. That's like 3 rounds out of the whole tournament. Very few issues with his mid-round calling. I love watching Vinny mid-round call. He is one of the better IGLs, like I said. His fragging come and goes, but for the most part he's a very solid rifler, and he does opt from time to time, mostly on Breeze. I noticed, I'm not sure if that was like one of those just throw something at the wall and let it stick kind of moments, but he does opt sometimes. Last but not least, we have Mitch. He's going to play one of the Sentinel roles on most maps. He's either going to play Killjoy or Cypher, and he does play Viper on Bind. He is definitely a site anchor. He site anchors on all the maps. He gets the job done on all these maps. He's getting 1, if not 2 or 3. He's also clutches quite a bit of the time, and he does opt from time to time. So I'll go over the map pool for Cloud9. In my opinion, the way that Cloud9's map pool goes is Breeze, Bind, Ascent, Split, Icebox, Haven, and lastly Fracture. Simply because we haven't seen it, we have no idea how good they're going to be at Fracture. I think they are their best at Breeze, just simply because Leaf basically has all the freedom in the world on defense on Breeze. He can play very aggressively in mid, and he can frag, and Zeppa's KO can give them a lot of information. And Breeze is a good map for mid-round calling, simply because you can have a lot of uses for mid on attack. There's the double door, you just go all the way through mid to B, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. Bind, I think they have a very good understanding of how to use the teleporters, which I wouldn't really normally think I would say, simply because Vanity's not a person that likes to play on Bind, from what he said on when he was a member of V1. So it was weird to me that they were so good on Bind, or in my opinion they were good on Bind. I like Zeppa's Raze on Bind. I think it looks really good on the Raze, especially on Bind. And Bind is probably Raze's best maps because there's less places you can be since there's no mid, and the corridors are very clunky and people usually grip up a lot, so Raze is a really good agent for Bind. I like their Ascent, I like the setups that Mitch has when he anchors a site, and I also like the KO as well on Ascent, simply because the corridors you group up a lot outside A main and B main. The knives usually get a lot of value there for information early and late round, and they also just play Ascent very well. I like their split, but they didn't really play split too much. I believe they only played it once or twice. I believe only once. But when they did play it, they looked really good. I mean, they 13-0'd Rise on split and looked really good doing it. 13-0s usually make it look really good. But it's really hard to tell what they were doing really well. Most of it was just really good scaling, spacing, and trading. But it's hard to tell if that was just Rise shitting the bed or they're just really that good. Icebox, we really didn't see them play Icebox too much, and it's probably for a reason because I don't think they really looked that good playing Icebox. They kind of got outplayed when they were on defense on Icebox. Just they were getting intried on. The Sinkers are going down without able to getting any value really, and they're just getting out-rotated a lot of the time. But then again, we didn't really see them play too much. Maybe they would look better, but they definitely did not look good. And Haven, I really did not like their Haven at all. Not a fan. When they play Haven, they're very reliant on Sinkers on the defense, and they're also very reliant on entry kills on the attack. It's mostly like, we get an entry kill, we go. If not, we'll rotate, and the enemy team we basically just run out of time, and we're forced to hit a site that is 3 to 4 players. I don't know. I would have thought they would have been good, simply because Vanny. It's very easy to mid-round call on Haven, but they tend to run into trouble on the attacking side as well as the defending side. Was not a fan of their Haven, and yeah. That's basically their map pool in my opinion. They have plenty of time to fix up a lot of their maps, so there'll probably be a completely different map pool by the time Champions comes around. Next, I'll move over to basically my overall thoughts on the team as a whole, moving into Valorant Champions. As you can see with this line graph on the screen, I'm going to give a very basic description of what I think this team is going into this tournament. And that being said, I do think this team is a well above average team. Why do I think they're well above average? I think they have great duelists, they have a great supporting cast, they have a great IGL, and their post plants and site retakes are pretty elite, if I do say so myself. However, I'm not going to give them the elite notation simply because the team tends to go as Leaf goes, simply because he is so aggressive on defense. It's very few and far between times that he is unable to get value in a half. Usually he's going to win rounds just by himself, simply being just better than his opponents. But sometimes it only happened maybe like 2 maps out of the whole tournament, but sometimes he won't be that elite tier, he'll be a step down, and they'll lose rounds simply because he's not able to get enough value for what he's going for. Another reason I'm not going to give them elite tier is simply because I just need them to prove their elite tier. I mean, this sounds very simple said out loud, but I just need to prove it to me for me to consider them elite. And also, they kind of struggled in the first few matches at LCQ. I think that was just because Rise simply was looking really, really good. and then they kind of dipped towards the end, and Cloud9 also got better throughout the tournament. It is just very hard to tell if they are elite tier or not. So I'm going to give them well above average. They definitely deserve well above average because they looked really, really good. And their util and overall game plan, the prep for teams, and the anti-stratting was all there. So they are definitely a very formidable team going into Valorant Champions. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. And if you didn't, please like, comment, subscribe anyway. If you'd like, go check out my Twitter, give it a follow, and yeah, have a nice day.
Have to move to protect themselves. And Van, here is the Viper's pit. We're doing everything in the House of Viper right now, but Superman goes down. That's gonna be Zeppa coming up with a frag. They fall quick, and it's gonna be it. The wait is over. C9 Blue will be your last North American team heading to champion.